When this week's storm started, forecasters knew it was going to be bad. They had flagged the setup days in advance. The SPC had issued its outlooks. The watches had gone out. The warnings had followed. And yet, even with all of that preparation, with all of that lead time, with every tool in the modern warning system deployed and active, this week took a turn that nobody wanted to see. Because this week did not just produce severe weather. It produced confirmed tornado deaths, confirmed EF3 damage in 2 separate states, a state of disaster declared in Texas, grapefruit-sized hailstones, 260,000 people without power across 6 states simultaneously, a city put under curfew to prevent people from entering their own neighborhoods, an industrial complex shredded, homes with their roofs ripped away. And through it all, new storms are already forming, heading south, heading east, targeting Florida and Georgia this weekend, and setting up a fresh severe weather corridor for the middle of next week. This week's storms did not wind down. They got worse. And the turn they just took is being documented in damage surveys, death certificates, and disaster declarations that will be on the record for years. Let us go through what this week actually delivered, because the details matter, and the full picture has not been captured in any single news report. Monday, April 27th, was supposed to be the headline day. The Storm Prediction Center had placed central and southern Illinois under an enhanced risk designation with a CIG2 Cigna, one of the most serious severe weather indicators in the forecasting toolkit, flagging the potential for violent long-track EF3 or stronger tornadoes. The atmospheric setup was a textbook, a southern stream shortwave merging with upper trough energy over the plains, a surface low deepening and tracking east-northeast, dew points in the mid-60s ahead of the front, a low-level jet increasing through the evening hours, 40 million people in the broader threat zone, and the storms fired. On Monday evening, a tornado moved through several towns in Clinton County, Illinois, including Germantown and Carlisle. The Clinton County Emergency Management Director described the scene: damaged homes, knocked down trees and power lines, blocked roads across a wide area. The American Red Cross was deployed to assist displaced residents. It was significant damage, but it was only the opening chapter of Monday night. The storms that moved through Illinois, Missouri, Kentucky, and Michigan on Monday and into Tuesday morning produced straight-line wind gusts of 70 to 80 miles per hour across a massive geographic footprint. The Clinton County Sheriff described the damage in Germantown and Trenton as unbelievable. Mobile homes destroyed, 3 limbs penetrating roofs, entire structures left uninhabitable. Across 6 states simultaneously, more than 260,000 customers lost electrical power. And in Grand Rapids, Michigan, this week claimed its first fatality. A tree, toppled by the violent straight-line winds of Monday's storm system, fell on a home. 1 person inside was killed. That fatality was not from a tornado. It was from the non-tornadic wind event that trailing the main tornado activity. A reminder that in a complex multi-hazard outbreak, the dangers extend far beyond the rotating storms that the cameras chase. Then came the damage survey results that made the serious turn official. The National Weather Service confirmed 5 EF1 tornadoes across Logan and Champaign counties in central and southeast Illinois from Monday's outbreak. But those were not the numbers that stopped meteorologists in their tracks. What stopped them was what the survey teams found in Kankakee County, Illinois, and just across the border in Indiana. A large and long-tracked EF3 tornado had passed through the southern portions of Kankakee, Illinois, and the suburb of Aroma Park. The damage was on a scale that the word significant does not adequately describe. More than 500 buildings were damaged across Kankakee and Aroma Park, 500 structures impacted by a single tornado in a populated area. 1 person was killed. The same supercell that produced that EF3 did not stop at the state line. It crossed into Indiana and struck the community of Lake Village, where it killed 2 more people and damaged an additional 106 buildings. 3 people killed by 1 supercell, 1 in Illinois, 2 in Indiana. EF3 wind intensity. More than 600 structures damaged or destroyed across 2 states. And that same supercell produced what may be record-breaking hail. Reports of hailstones measuring 5 to 6 inches in diameter, grapefruit size, were documented in the Kankakee area. If those measurements are confirmed by official survey teams, they would break the former Illinois state record for maximum hail diameter, which had stood at 4.75 inches. 5 to 6 inch hailstones do not just dent cars. They destroy them. They penetrate roofs. They injure and kill people and animals caught in the open. They flatten crops in seconds. And the same storm that was producing tornado-scale destruction on the ground was simultaneously generating those hailstones aloft, a testament to the extraordinary energy contained in this week's supercells. The Kankakee event is worth dwelling on specifically, because 500 buildings damaged by a single tornado in a populated area is a number that belongs in a category of catastrophic urban tornado strikes that most Americans associate only with the most extreme historical events. The 2011 Joplin, Missouri EF5 tornado, is the benchmark reference point. It damaged or destroyed approximately 7,000 buildings and killed 161 people. Kankakee's EF3 is not Joplin, but 500 buildings is not a small number for a single tornado event in a city of just over 26,000 people. That means a significant percentage of the residential and commercial structures in a mid-sized Illinois city were impacted by a single rotating storm in a single evening. The death toll from the Kankakee tornado, 1 in Illinois, 2 more in Lake Village, Indiana from the same supercell, was kept lower than it might have been by the warning that went out ahead of the storm and by the fact that the tornado struck during the evening rather than overnight. Had that storm occurred at 3 a.m. on a night when residents were asleep and phone alerts were silenced, the outcome would almost certainly have been worse. That is not a hypothetical. It is a pattern documented in every comparison study of daytime versus nighttime tornado fatalities across the modern warning era. Kankakee's 3 deaths are 3 too many, and they could have been more. Tuesday, April 28th, added a new chapter, and this one was in Texas. The National Weather Service in Fort Worth issued a tornado warning at 5:11 p.m. CDT for a confirmed radar-indicated tornado approaching Mineral Wells, Texas, a city of roughly 14,000 people located 80 miles west of Dallas. The tornado moved in along Highway 180, approaching at 25 miles per hour. By the time it passed through, the damage it left behind was severe enough to trigger a local state of disaster declaration and an emergency declaration of powers from city officials. A curfew was imposed for all heavily damaged areas of the city, initially running through 6 a.m. Wednesday, and then extended to a nightly 8 p.m. restriction while recovery operations continued. The National Weather Service survey team confirmed an EF3 rating for the Mineral Wells tornado, with peak winds estimated at 145 miles per hour. The damage path began in the Country Club Estates neighborhood and tracked southeast through the city, striking a manufacturing complex that included facilities for major industrial operators, before continuing through the National Vietnam War Museum, a historic site that sustained severe damage. Homes were made uninhabitable, structures were collapsed or shredded, 18-wheelers were flipped. One Mineral Wells resident named Christopher Hester described vicious winds bursting through the front door of his duplex, then ripping the roof apart as he and his wife grabbed their dog and ducked into a hallway. He described the sound as like a monstrous vacuum cleaner. The sight that greeted him when it was over was a home that was open to the sky. 5 people were injured in Mineral Wells, 2 of whom required hospitalization. The city's mayor stated that recovery efforts will be long-term for the town. The same Tuesday storm system produced additional tornadoes across North Texas. Survey teams confirmed EF1 damage at Rio Vista and EF0 damage near Cleburne and Godley, 4 confirmed tornadoes across the corridor in a single afternoon. And as if the ground level damage were not enough, Tuesday's storms also produced massive hail near Godley, Texas, with reports of grapefruit-sized stones, matching the scale of what the Kankakee supercell had produced the night before in Illinois. Baseball-sized hail was documented near Springfield, Missouri, while tennis ball size was confirmed in multiple North Texas locations. In southern Oklahoma, a possible tornado shredded buildings, including mobile homes, and significantly damaged power infrastructure, with aerial footage showing transmission towers bent to the ground near the town of Caney in Atoka County. The Mineral Wells EF3 was not happening in isolation. It was the punctuation mark at the end of a week that had already delivered an EF4 in Enid. Oklahoma, deadly EF2 tornadoes near Runaway Bay, Texas, a particularly dangerous situation tornado warning in Stone County, Arkansas, and now EF3 destruction in both Kankakee County, Illinois, and Mineral Wells, Texas, within 24 hours of each other. 2 different EF3 tornadoes, 2 different states. One from a supercell that also produced potentially record hail, one from a storm that forced a Texas city to declare a state of disaster and impose a nighttime curfew. And the total confirmed U.S. tornado-related deaths in 2026 now stands at 12. And those are only the deaths directly attributed to tornadoes, not the broader severe weather fatalities that include the Grand Rapids tree fall and other storm-related casualties. Illinois leads the entire nation in tornado, hail, and wind reports so far in 2026. That fact deserves to be repeated and absorbed because Illinois is not a state that people instinctively think of when they imagine tornado and severe weather statistics. Oklahoma, Texas, Kansas. Those are the states in the national imagination when the conversation turns to tornadoes. But in 2026, Illinois has led the country. The NWS Chicago Forecast Office had already documented 128 severe thunderstorm and tornado warnings by April 19th, a number that had never been reached that early in a calendar year in the office's history. The Kankakee, EF3, Germantown-Carlisle tornado damage, the Clinton County emergency response, the 5 confirmed EF1s from Monday night, All of this is adding to a record that is rewriting what residents of central and southern Illinois need to understand about their personal tornado risk. And now, as damage survey teams are still working through Kankakee and Mineral Wells, the threat is on the move again. The weekend severe weather threat shifted south and east as the cold front responsible. For Monday and Tuesday's destruction drove through the Gulf states. Strong to severe storms developed across southern Georgia, the eastern Florida Panhandle, and northern and central Florida on Saturday, May 2nd. The Storm Prediction Center maintained a slight risk across that corridor for damaging winds and large hail, with a narrow zone in North Florida specifically identified for a higher. Tornado risk, where marginally stronger low-level shear and boundary layer destabilization could align in the mid-morning hours. The SPC's own forecast discussion noted moderately unstable and strongly sheared atmospheric profiles across the southeast region, conditions capable of supporting embedded supercells within the squall line structure moving through the area. For travelers with plans across the Florida Panhandle and coastal Georgia over the weekend, forecasters were explicit. Check weather updates frequently, expect potential flight delays and road closures, and be prepared for rapid weather changes. The broader significance of Saturday's southeast activity goes beyond the immediate threat. The Gulf Coast and Deep South Corridor, Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, sits in what researchers and forecasters consistently identify as the El Niño amplification zone. When El Niño conditions develop and strengthen, tornado and severe storm frequency in the Gulf Coast and Southeast historically increases. NOAA data shows that Florida's tornado frequency in El Niño years is nearly double the rate seen in neutral years, climbing to an average of 20 tornado events per year in strong El Niño conditions. With the World Meteorological Organization now formally projecting El Niño development by May through July of 2026, and with the IRI model ensemble placing the probability of El Niño development at 85% through year-end, Saturday's activity in the southeast is not a one-time event, a weather frequency across those states that will extend through summer and into fall. The SPC's Day 4 through 8 extended outlook, issued as of May 2nd, is already flagging a significant new severe weather setup developing for Tuesday, May 5th. A southern stream shortwave trough over the southwest is forecast to merge with an upper trough over the plains and upper Midwest. At the surface, low pressure will develop over the southern plains and track east-northeast into Arkansas, with a cold front developing southeast across Oklahoma, Arkansas, and the lower Ohio Valley. Ahead of that front, rich Gulf moisture will return northward, with dew points in the 60s to near 70 degrees Fahrenheit forecast by Tuesday afternoon and evening across southeast Oklahoma and the Ark-La-Tex region. Those dew point values, especially the near 70-degree readings, are the atmospheric signature of the deep, unstable moisture that fueled the most violent supercells of the April outbreak sequence. The same ingredient that was present when the Enid EF4 formed. The same ingredient that allowed the Kankakee EF3 to damage 500 buildings in a populated Illinois city. And it is returning to the southern plains and mid-south corridor in less than a week. What makes this week's turn serious, beyond the death toll, beyond the disaster, declarations, beyond the curfews and the grapefruit hail and the 145-mile-per-hour winds through a Texas city, is what it reveals about the pattern that has now been operating for more than 2 consecutive weeks. This is not a single storm. This is not a brief, violent outbreak that arrived and departed. This is a persistent, amplified atmospheric configuration that has been generating destructive, severe weather across a 1,500-mile geographic corridor from Oklahoma to Michigan to Illinois to Indiana to Texas to Arkansas, and now to Florida and Georgia, day after day, round after round, EF3 after EF3, with a Tuesday, May 5th setup already taking shape before the current damage surveys are complete. The infrastructure damage dimension of this week's storms extends well beyond the visible destruction of homes and businesses. Power grid damage from the 260,000 customer outage across 6 states on Monday night required crews working around the clock to locate downed lines, replace transformers, restore transmission capacity, and reconnect individual service points in neighborhoods where tree debris made access dangerous even for trained crews. In a week that also brought above normal heat to parts of the affected region, those power outages are not just inconvenient. For elderly residents, infants, and people with chronic health conditions dependent on electrically powered medical devices, oxygen concentrators, nebulizers, home dialysis equipment, a multi-day power outage during a warm spring week is a medical emergency dressed up as a weather event. Emergency management professionals track power outage health consequences closely after major events and consistently find that the secondary mortality associated with prolonged outages during weather extremes rivals or exceeds the direct storm. Fatality toll. That reality is almost never captured in the headline severe weather death count, but it is real and it is happening right now in communities across Illinois, Missouri, Kentucky, and Michigan that are still working to restore service from Monday's event. The human stories coming out of this week are the ones that stay with you. Christopher Hester and his wife sheltered in a hallway as the roof of their home came apart above them. The residents of Kankakee found more than 500 buildings damaged in their city. The families in Lake Village, Indiana, dealing with 2 neighbors killed by the same storm that crossed the state line from Illinois. The people of Mineral Wells under curfew, unable to return to their own streets, salvaging belongings from homes that are now structurally compromised and open to the elements. A mother and daughter killed in Oklahoma earlier in the season by an EF2 along U.S. Highway 60. 3 people killed by the Union City, Michigan EF3, which also injured 12 others while producing the kind of footage, a tornado briefly lifting lake ice into its circulation, that made international news for its sheer visual violence. These are not statistics, these are people. And the pattern that killed and injured them and destroyed their homes is still active, still developing, still loading the next round. The broader question that this week forces onto the table, and that the 2026 season as a whole has been steadily demanding an answer to, is whether the warning and response infrastructure that has performed so well in keeping tornado death tolls lower than they would otherwise be is being adequately maintained as the threat environment intensifies. The Michigan EF3 outbreak in Union City earlier in the season, which killed 3 people and injured 12, occurred without a tornado watch in effect at the time, because the storm was concentrated in a small 3-county area and had only a level 1 marginal risk designation that day. Governor Whitmer publicly questioned whether National Weather Service funding cutbacks under the Trump administration had played any role in that warning gap. That question was not answered. The Union City deaths happened regardless. And now Kankakee has added 3 more deaths to the 2026 tornado. Fatality total. This time with a watch and warning system that was fully activated. The warning system worked in Kankakee in the sense that warnings were issued. Whether it reduced the death toll to the minimum possible is a question that post-event reviews will evaluate. But the system is only as effective as its weakest link. And in a season where EF3 tornadoes are striking populated Illinois cities and Texas towns in the same 24 hours, our window, the weakest links in that system, deserve urgent, specific, and public scrutiny. AccuWeather meteorologist Alex Duffus issued his warning before the season began, and it has been validated with brutal specificity by every week of 2026. He said it in plain language: do not let your guard down this severe weather season. Flash floods and damaging wind gusts can be just as destructive as tornadoes and often impact a much larger area. It only takes one storm striking a densely populated or vulnerable community to make this a devastating season, regardless of the national tornado count. This week, multiple storms struck multiple populated communities. The count is no longer the story. The story is the damage in Kankakee. The story is about the disaster declaration in Mineral Wells. The story is the 260,000 homes and businesses without power across 6 states after a single Monday night event. And the story is what the radar is already showing for Tuesday. The economic toll accumulating from this week alone is staggering when you begin to add it up. Mineral Wells, Texas, is a city of 14,000 people. It now has a state of disaster declaration, a manufacturing complex damaged, a historic war museum struck, and dozens of homes and businesses made uninhabitable, all of which represent insurance claims, contractor demand, displaced families, lost productivity, and government recovery costs that a small Texas city was not budgeted to absorb. Kankakee, Illinois, with 500-plus buildings damaged, faces a recovery process that will take months at minimum and years at maximum. The communities in Lake Village, Indiana, dealing with 106 damaged buildings and 2 tornado deaths, face the same compound recovery burden: grief, insurance, construction backlogs, and the psychological weight of living through a violent storm event while still surrounded by its wreckage. All of these communities are competing for the same pool of roofing contractors, structural engineers, FEMA caseworkers, and insurance adjusters, simultaneously being requested by families displaced from the Enid EF4, the Runaway Bay deaths, the Arkansas PDS tornado, and every event that preceded this week. The severe weather season is not just producing property damage. It is producing a demand for recovery resources that is compounding faster than those resources can scale. The people waiting for a contractor to make their home livable again are waiting in a line that is getting longer every week. This week's storms took a serious turn. They are not finished, and the atmosphere is already building for the next chapter.